Right, so I just want to acknowledge the Ibbara and Turrbal people, who are the First Nations custodians for this area. Show my respect to elders past, present, and my bloody-minded determination that the elders coming will have a better run of it than the last few have. You reckon just wave and it all happens? Oh, not yet. And I brought this depiction of Noongar country from southwestern Australia with me. I don't quite get that art. Is that country, is it? And I was building the courage to talk to Craig, the artist, about it. When my wife said, and she went to school with Craig, have you had a look what he called it? So this is me. For all the science, thanks fellas yesterday, this is a white man lost in what is essentially still a black man's world. Next one. So Tandy and Gary have asked me to talk to one aspect of our program, working on country, working with First Nations people. Great. It's the stuff that gets you all tingly. I'll start with this photo. A couple of mates from Norseman, Nudju people, horticulturalists. That tree is a 500, 600, 700-year-old salmon gum. Our trees don't shed water. Our trees channel it into the root system. They play with it horticulturally when it's very young, turn into a multi-stem tree, wunya, water tree, with a pool of water in the middle that is useful on your travels. And these guys, with no involvement from us, had the confidence, we might have helped with the confidence, to jump out of a vehicle and stop the bulldozers along roadworks. Next one, please. Gondwana, I think, it's across the biodiversity hotspot of southwestern Australia. We can wrestle on who's got a bigger hotspot, if you like. 1,000 kilometres from Margaret River to the Nullarbor, and of course, the living centre of Australia. I grew up at schools where they taught you about the dead centre, the living centre, the bit that's most intact, all the way through to all your country, almost. There's our 20-year-old map and our 20-year-old vision, which we're still working to. Next one. Slightly updated map. Oh, have I showed you that, Virginia? Yeah, we've dropped south and picked up the Esperance sand plain because the Delarak people, I'll talk about this in a minute, asked us to. Yeah, we respond. Couple of things I should point out. Nearly all the farming country, the light coloured stuff covered by the swish, has been cleared since the late 50s, early 60s. So we haven't had that species leakage that you get in a lot of fragmented landscapes. And it does have all the hotter spots in the southwest hotspot. And that straight line, there's a film about that further north, but they named it wrong. It's actually the farmer-proof fence. And yes, we did have a 3 million hectare let's open up lots more country that we had to deal with some years ago. Next one, please. I'm going to have to go quicker, aren't I? Bugger. Jamil called his quick and dirty, I think. We don't do quick and dirty, we do rapid and robust. Southwest Australia is already copping significant climate change impacts, heating and drying, 15-20% loss of rainfall. So we're across the climate gradient, you can read, we're large enough to make a lasting difference. We got most of the hot spots, it's the south. Stuff's going to move south, right? They might climb up hills here to the cooler bits, we don't have hills. And it's not just, look, any wildebeest who want to go through, great, but we've got to start thinking about genetic movement and plants, invertebrates, all these things. So we're thinking. Next one, please. Who are we? Well, don't think of us as an organisation. We're trying to be a movement, quite decentralised, quite organic, networks with networks, bunch of groups there that we've worked with over the years. We still work with a lot of them. Some don't like us now because of something we did. Some do. It's all right. It's got a life of its own. We've doubled in size at the core. Yep, we started with 1.5 people. We're now nearly 3. most of what's raised and effort goes on the ground and into groups on the ground. Next one, please. And the core has been privately funded since inception. One of our great successes is getting government on board with this. Bob's already told his story. But thank you for the people who fund us and keep us going. Next, please. Oh, my heart sings. It's a wonderful place out there, Great Western Woodlands, as it's now known. We have a conservation measure in Western Australia. This joins 3 Tasmanias, 16 million hectares. Next, please. And it got its name and its reputation through the work of a small group of people. This is a slide from 2008. Brought together the science. Alexander Watson, some people will know Alexander, did a great report on the woodlands, some great political footwork from, I think, 2004-05. We had a good engagement with the Nudgee people. Sonny Graham up there. Next one, please. We then spent the next 3 years trying to help government. We got election commitments on this, help government with its Great Western Woodlands strategy. That was a waste of time. As soon as the money was gone, so were they. But the federal court turned up and granted Nudgee exclusive native title over 4.5 million hectares of the woodlands. That's nearly 1 Tasmania. We'd been talking with them all this time. They got their native title recognised. They didn't get much else. So we raised up the money and a few workshops. What do you want? They wanted to be able to manage their country again. Next slide, please. So from then on, we helped them establish Nudgee Conservation Aboriginal Corporation, raised a few $1 million, bought some properties, bought 3 or 4 vehicles, and in September 2017, handed it all over, and they run an autonomous operation ever since. Wonderful stuff. Next one, please. We'll skip that one. Next one, please. There you go. Now this is, my heart's singing again. We helped the Dalarak people to the south, Dalarak Wadjuri, with their Healthy Country Plan and their initial structure. They didn't get exclusive, they got Nilua. And they've come back to us just in the last year with, we're going to do cultural corridors. We're going to reclaim our songlines. And oh look, it's damn near the same as what you want to do ecologically. And I don't know where, Jamie's not here today, but he missed this layer in his conversation yesterday. And it's with great pleasure I say that working with some colleagues, Tiverton Agricultural Impact Fund, Carbon Neutral and others, we've already pulled 4,500 hectares of land that Dalarak now own and will be paid to restore, and we'll get a slice of the carbon income along one of their key storylines. Next one, please. Yes, well, I just wanted to make the point that it's not all lovely. The Great Western Woodlands is one of the richest mineralised zones in Australia, so I'm not talking about mines, but we get on all right. They're not as big as farms. And we got the old rabbit-proof fence, which then became the vermin fence. See the vermin up there? And which is now called the State Barrier Fence. And the plan is to extend it another 630 kilometres around the Esperance farmland. We live in a colonial state where it's still okay to do that with wildlife. Next slide, please, before I explode. Okay, moving into the middle section of Gondwana. Haven't got time to do the maps properly. It's a big national park in the middle. There's a few big bits of bush around. Stirling Range, Koikennaruff National Park, Napalungup, Fitzgerald River National Park. We've worked with a very impressive array of groups, large NGOs, locals, individual conservation buyers and so on. And so far there has been 27,000 hectares snaffled, retrieved from farmland, from country that was opened up in the 1960s. It's an impressive number, but it doesn't look that impressive when you see it in the scale. If we can get 20,000 hectares out of the 20 million hectare WA wheat belt and put it in the right place, have it in the right place, we will have 1,000 kilometres of connected country across the climate gradient, at least 2 kilometres wide. Next slide, please. We can put bush back. That's 110 hectares. Bill and Jane Thompson from Glasshouse Mountains, refugees from the population explosion here. But that there's about 80, 90 species went into that restoration mix. It was direct seeded at anywhere between 15 to 25 hectares a day out of a modified Great Plains cedar. Got great functional bird gill data. The birds are back. Next slide. Look, I won't do the full jigsaw trick, but this is pretty much the same area. A river reserve, property called Nowanup at Greening Australia, still owned. Come back to that. Carbon neutral property, nature reserve, bush heritage property, Bill and Jane's, bush heritage property, another nature reserve, and Greening Australia's Yarrabee next to Koikenera. So the jigsaw we do. Next slide, please. The Nowanup property, that's when you have that, oh yeah, we're here ecologically, but it's Noongar land. So we invited the elders out for a day. Next slide, please. And 15, 16 years later, and incredible stuff. Those men, that's the first gathering of stolen generation men on their country for a long time. And that night, they had the first dancing on country since the 1930s. You can do a lot of good in this world. Bottom picture is negotiations with Curtin University about establishing a bush campus, a bit like a meat ant negotiating with an elephant, but it's doing all right. And putting totems back on the landscape, the 300-metre carder, Gondwana, Varanus rosenbergi. Next slide, please. And this year, burning. First time, cultural fires back in that country. Next slide, please. And I've just brought a few of these for anyone who's quick. We are getting the stories of all this work out and across the broader population in lots of ways. We've done a film, go to Ronin Films, give them just a few dollars and you can watch it. Breathing Life in the Budja, social and ecological restoration in an ancient land. Gary was doing some interpretive dance. We're going to do G-Link. Anyway, next March, there's 5 dances performed by communities across G-Link. It's called The Stars Descend. There's some wonderful evolutionary sculptures going up, and we've built a website for visitors and tourists. I think tourism is our best adult education opportunity. So if you go to Heartland Journeys, we did it for the middle bit of the link. We're currently extending it out. Go to Stories, and you'll find a lot of what I'm saying was a bit fluffy compared to what people are really doing. Next slide, please. So going back to the topic, I'll be very quick, Jamil, promise. Working for country, caring for country, I like the caring word, and sorry Liz, I don't like the NRM Act. It's still a bit colonial, utilitarian to me. Why do we work with First Nations people? Well, let me be blunt. It's because it's a decent thing to do. Lots of other reasons, but if your primary reason isn't that it's the decent thing to do, then you ought to go away and grow some ethics before you come back in. If we're not going to give the country back, we should at least pay the rent. It's as simple as asking people what they want and trying to deliver it with continuity and consistency. And the picture is another reminder that that's bloody hard if you rely on short-term stop-start government funding. It's not something you do on a field trip. It's something you have long-term relationships with people. It's not a world for the transient professionals. Query any gatekeepers. Eugene, Nowanup, the guy who made Nowanup work. When we got Greening Australia to employ him, a couple of other Noongar gentlemen suggested he was the wrong bloke and I'd get my face rearranged unless we got rid of him and appointed someone else. And I just had to say, sorry, it's been done twice already. Do not accept gatekeepers. Full stop. Sticky fingers don't work. Anyway, that's self-evident. To finish, I'm on the red, but I do know my chair's here, and I think it's time I gave my formal 20-year summary of progress to date, Virginia. Here it is. Next slide, please. Thank you.